Lena Hayes didn't plan to text a billionaire. She only wanted her son to stop crying. It was past midnight, the kind of cold, hollow hour where even the city outside seemed to hold its breath. Lena sat on the floor of her apartment's tiny kitchen, her legs pulled up to her chest, a threadbare blanket wrapped around her shoulders. The lights were off, not because she wanted it dark, but because the power company didn't do sympathy extensions. Tyler cried from the bedroom. His bottle had been mostly water tonight. Lena tried not to look at the empty can of formula sitting on the counter. She'd stretched it as far as she could, mixing it thinner each day, telling herself it was fine, that Friday's paycheck would fix everything. But Friday felt like a lifetime away when your 18-month-old son was screaming from hunger. She picked up her phone with shaky hands, thumb hovering over her cousin's contact. Jake had helped before, not happily, but he had. She didn't want to ask again. The last time, he'd made sure she knew what a burden she was, how she needed to get her life together, as if she wasn't trying with every fiber of her being. But tonight wasn't about pride. It was about a baby who didn't understand why his stomach hurt. She typed, "Jake, I hate to ask again. Can you lend me $40 for formula? Tyler's running out. I get paid next week. I'll pay you back, I promise." Her thumb trembled as she hit send. She didn't double-check the number. She didn't even look at the name. She just set the phone down, dropped her forehead to her knees, and waited. The apartment was silent except for Tyler's cries and the drip of the kitchen faucet she couldn't afford to fix. Outside, a siren wailed in the distance. Another night in the city that never stopped moving, never stopped demanding more than she had to give. 5 minutes later, her phone buzzed. "I think you have the wrong number." Lena blinked, sat up, grabbed the phone, and stared in horror. One wrong digit. She'd texted a stranger. Her stomach dropped. Heat flooded her face even though no one could see her shame. "I'm so sorry. Please ignore." Wrong number. She locked the screen, tossed the phone aside, pulled the blanket tighter. Another failure added to the pile. Another moment where she couldn't even get asking for help right. Tyler's cries intensified, and Lena pushed herself up from the floor. She walked to the bedroom, picked him up, and held him against her chest, rocking slowly even as her own tears fell silently into his soft hair. "I'm sorry, baby," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." Across town, on the top floor of a luxury apartment that overlooked the harbor, Daniel Cross stared at the message on his private phone. He never gave this number out. No business contacts, no media, only a handful of people. And that list had gotten shorter every year. The text wasn't spam. It wasn't a scam. It was raw and real in a way that cut through the usual noise of his life. He looked at the message again, reading between the lines. "Tyler's running out. I get paid next week." It wasn't just a request. It was a mother at the end of her rope, choosing between dignity and her child's needs. He knew that feeling. Not the poverty. He'd been fortunate in ways he never took for granted, but the desperation. The moment when you realize you'd do anything, sacrifice anything, for someone you love. You should ignore it, the logical part of his brain said. It's not your problem. Most nights he would have. Most nights, he deleted messages, ignored calls, kept the world at a careful distance. It was easier that way, safer. But tonight, something stopped him. Maybe it was the loneliness of his empty apartment. Maybe it was the anniversary, 5 years since Elena's death, that he'd been trying not to think about all day. Maybe it was the simple fact that someone, somewhere, needed help, and he could give it. He typed back, "Is your son okay?" Lena stared at the message, her heart pounding. What kind of stranger follows up like that? Her first instinct was to block the number. Strange men who responded to desperate women at midnight rarely had good intentions. She'd learned that lesson the hard way more than once. But something about the question, about how simply it was asked, with what felt like genuine concern, made her pause. "We'll be fine. Sorry again." She waited, expecting nothing. Expecting him to move on with his night, forget about the random text from a woman he'd never meet. "Let me help. No strings attached." Lena scoffed aloud, the sound bitter in the dark room. No strings attached. Right. Because that's how the world worked. Because men just helped single mothers out of the goodness of their hearts. "I don't take money from strangers." Fair enough. I'm Daniel. Now I'm not a stranger. Despite herself, despite everything, Lena felt the corner of her mouth twitch. There was something almost charming about the logic, even if it was completely ridiculous. She looked down at Tyler, finally starting to settle against her shoulder, his cries reducing to whimpers. What did she have to lose? If it was a scam, she had nothing to steal anyway. I'm Lena. Nice to meet you, Lena. How much do you need? She hesitated. $40 felt like both too much and not enough. Too much to ask from a stranger, not enough to fix the larger problems in her life. I don't know if I should do this. I understand. But sometimes accepting help isn't weakness. It's wisdom. Lena closed her eyes. When was the last time someone had said something kind to her? When was the last time someone had seen her struggle and not judged her for it? Just for formula. $40. Send me your Cash App. Her hands shook as she typed out her username. This was insane. This was desperate. This was exactly the kind of thing her mother would have warned her about if her mother were still alive. But Tyler needed formula, and she was out of options. She sent the username and waited. 3 seconds later, her phone buzzed again. $3,000 received from Daniel Cross. Lena sat frozen, staring at the screen. She blinked once, twice, 3 times. The number didn't change. $3,000. This is way too much. I only needed $40. Consider it an investment. One less thing to worry about. Her vision blurred. She couldn't remember the last time she'd cried from something other than stress or fear. But these tears were different. Hot and overwhelming and too big for her chest to contain. She didn't cry when she got evicted from her last apartment and had to move into this tiny one-bedroom with mold in the bathroom. She didn't cry when Tyler's father abandoned them 3 months into her pregnancy, claiming he wasn't ready for that responsibility. She didn't cry when she had to choose between her blood pressure medication and groceries for the 3rd time that month. But this broke her. Her hands shook as she typed, "Thank you. I don't know what to say." You don't need to say anything. Just take care of Tyler. And then she noticed it. She never told him her son's name. Lena couldn't sleep. Even after Tyler finally drifted off, his belly full for the first time in days, she sat wide awake on the edge of her mattress, holding her phone like it might vanish if she looked away. She reread the transfer screen again. $3,000. Still there. Still real. People don't just do things like this. Not without expecting something in return. She'd learned that lesson in 1,000 small ways. The supervisor who offered help with her schedule if she'd just be friendlier, the neighbor who'd lent her money and then showed up drunk at her door expecting payment of a different kind. She opened their chat again, scrolling back through the messages. Just take care of Tyler. No emoji, no innuendo, no hidden agenda in the words. Just simple. Certain. She typed, "Why did you do that?" The reply came quickly this time. "Because someone helped me once when I had nothing. Changed my entire life. I've been looking for a way to pay it forward." There was something honest about it. Something that made her want to believe him, even though every survival instinct she'd developed screamed not to trust it. "I want to pay you back someday. If you insist, then pay it forward to someone else when you can. That's how it works." Lena stared at those words. They felt genuine in a way nothing had in months, maybe years. "Can I at least know who you are?" "Just someone who got lucky. But if you're curious, you can Google my name. Daniel Cross." She hesitated, then opened a browser. She typed his name, half expecting nothing, half expecting something that would confirm her worst fears. The results loaded faster than she was ready for. Daniel Cross, founder of Vertex Analytics. Net worth estimated at $4.7 billion. Tech entrepreneur, philanthropist, known for anonymous donations to education and healthcare initiatives. There were only a few photos, most from charity events where he looked uncomfortable in a tuxedo, like he'd rather be anywhere else. One showed him shaking hands with a senator, his smile polite but not reaching his eyes. Another was from a tech conference, his expression serious as he listened to someone off camera. He looked normal, tired, human. Her heart pounded. This was real. He was real. She typed back, "You're serious. I don't joke about helping people. Why me? Why not you?" Lena stared at those 3 words for a long time. Why not you? As if she deserved help. As if she wasn't somehow less worthy than anyone else because of her circumstances. "Thank you," she typed again. "I mean it. You have no idea what this means." "I think I have some idea. Get some sleep, Lena. Tomorrow will be better." And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Lena believed it might be true. Over the next week, Lena used the money carefully, almost reverently. Formula, name brand, the kind Tyler's pediatrician recommended, diapers, baby wipes, She paid the overdue electric bill and watched with relief as the lights came back on. She bought vegetables and actual meat at the grocery store, not just ramen and canned beans. She even put down a security deposit on a better apartment in a safer neighborhood, one with a working heater and no suspicious stains on the carpet. The landlord barely looked at her application once she showed proof of funds. For the first time since Tyler was born, Lena felt like she could breathe. She didn't hear from Daniel again. Part of her was relieved. It made the whole thing feel less complicated, less like she owed him something she couldn't repay. Part of her wondered if she'd imagined the whole thing, if she'd wake up and find her account empty again. Then, on a Tuesday morning while Tyler was napping, her phone buzzed. "How's Tyler?" She smiled before she could stop herself. "He's good. Really good. We moved to a better place. Thank you again. I still can't believe you did that." "I'm glad. Listen, I have a strange question. What did you do before Tyler?" "I was a data analyst. Worked for a mid-sized marketing firm until they downsized." "Why? You any good at it?" Lena felt a spark of something she hadn't felt in a long time. Pride. She'd been good at her job. Really good. "I was one of the best they had. I built their entire client retention model from scratch." "Interesting. Would you be open to freelance work? Remote, flexible hours, pays well." Lena's breath caught. "You're offering me a job?" "I'm offering you an opportunity. My company needs someone to audit our client engagement data. It's short-term, maybe 3 months, but it could lead to more." She stared at the screen, her mind racing. This felt too good to be true. First the money, now a job? What was the catch? "I have a toddler. I can't do regular office hours. That's why I said remote and flexible. Work whenever you can. As long as the work gets done, I don't care if it's at 2 a.m. in your pajamas." "Why me? You could hire anyone." "Because I have a feeling about you. And because my best decisions have always come from trusting my gut." Lena looked over at Tyler, sleeping peacefully in his crib. She thought about the life she wanted to give him. Not just survival, but something more. Security, opportunities. A mother who wasn't always exhausted and afraid. "When would I start?" "Whenever you're ready." "How about tomorrow?" "Perfect. I'll have my team send you the access credentials." Lena threw herself into the work with an intensity she didn't know she still possessed. Daniel had sent her access credentials to a secure portal filled with spreadsheets, user data, engagement metrics, and campaign performance reports. Her job was simple: find patterns, identify inefficiencies, and flag anything suspicious. It felt good to use her brain again, to be more than just a struggling single mother, to remember that she was smart, capable, valuable. She worked late into the night after Tyler went to sleep, headphones on, fingers flying across the keyboard. The data was messy. Years of accumulated information with inconsistent formatting and gaps in the records. But Lena had always been good at finding order in chaos. By the end of the first week, she'd reorganized their entire database structure and created a new dashboard that made the data actually readable. She sent it to Daniel with a brief note explaining her changes. His response came within the hour. "This is incredible. You've done more in a week than my last analyst did in 6 months. What else did you find?" "Just getting started. Give me another week." By the end of the second week, she'd found something that made her stomach turn. A client account with irregular activity. The engagement numbers didn't match the reported conversions. Someone had been inflating the metrics, making campaigns look more successful than they actually were. The client was being overcharged by nearly $200,000 based on fraudulent data. But it wasn't just one account. As she dug deeper, she found 3 more with the same pattern. Same inflation method. Same suspicious gaps in the audit trail. Someone inside Vertex Analytics was running a scam, and they'd been doing it for at least 2 years. Lena's hands shook slightly as she compiled everything into a detailed report. She triple-checked every number, every calculation, every conclusion. This wasn't just about doing good work anymore. This was about fraud, about potentially destroying someone's career, or saving Daniel's company from a massive lawsuit. She sent the report at 2:47 a.m. with a subject line that read, "You need to see this. Call me when you can." Her phone rang 6 minutes later. "Lena." Daniel's voice was tight. "Tell me what you found." She walked him through it, point by point. The inflated metrics, the fake conversions, the pattern of systematic fraud that had been hidden in plain sight. When she finished, there was a long silence. "Do you know who it is?" she asked quietly. "I have a pretty good idea," Daniel said. His voice was different now, harder, colder than she'd heard before. This is exactly what I needed. Lena, you're incredible. Just doing my job. No? Most people wouldn't have caught this. Most people wouldn't have cared enough to dig this deep. He paused. I want to bring you on full-time. Better pay, benefits, equity options. Build your own team if you want. What do you say? Lena's heart raced. I have a son. I can't do regular office hours. We'll work around it. Daycare stipend included. Hell, I'll build a daycare in the office if that's what it takes. I mean it, Lena. I want you on my team. She took a shaky breath. This was real. This was happening. After everything, all the struggle, all the fear, all the nights wondering if she'd ever get her life back, this was happening. Okay, she whispered. Yes, I'm in. 3 months later, Lena was settled into a routine she never thought possible. She had her own home office set up in the new apartment, a real desk, a comfortable chair, dual monitors. Tyler was thriving in a good daycare program where they knew his name and actually seemed to care about him. She had a reliable income. Savings, even. She'd bought Tyler new clothes that actually fit instead of hand-me-downs from the donation bin. She'd bought herself clothes, too. Professional pieces that made her feel like someone who belonged in her new role. Daniel had kept his word on everything. He never micromanaged. Never made her feel like she owed him. He treated her like a professional. Like someone who'd earned her place through skill and hard work, not charity. They'd never met in person, though. All their communication happened through video calls and messages. She'd suggested meeting once, but he'd deflected, saying he was traveling for business. Lena didn't push. Part of her liked it this way. The distance felt safer somehow. She could be professional, competent, without the complication of whatever else might exist between them. But she thought about him. More than she probably should. Then one evening, as she was reviewing quarterly reports, her phone rang. It was Daniel, but this time his voice sounded different. Strained. Lena, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Her stomach tightened. Okay, have you noticed anything unusual in the financial reports? Anything that doesn't add up? She pulled up her laptop. What am I looking for? Payments to vendors that don't seem legitimate. Shell companies. Anything that feels off. Lena's analyst brain kicked into gear. She started digging through the files Daniel had given her access to. This was different from client data. This was internal financials, the company's own money. It took her 2 hours, but she found it. A series of payments to a vendor called Cascade Solutions LLC. The amounts were always under $10,000, just below the threshold that would trigger an automatic review. But over the past 18 months, they added up to nearly $800,000. She cross-referenced the vendor against their approved supplier list. Nothing. She searched for any contracts, any invoices, any paper trail that would explain the payments. Nothing. She called Daniel back, her heart pounding. I found something. Cascade Solutions. Does that name mean anything to you? There was a long pause. That's what I was afraid of. What's going on? Someone on my executive team has been embezzling. I've suspected it for months, but I couldn't prove it. I needed someone outside the inner circle to find the evidence. Lena's chest tightened. You used me. No, Daniel said quickly, firmly. I gave you a job you deserved. And yes, I hoped you'd find this. But everything I said about your skills was true. You're the only person I could trust with this. She wanted to be angry. She wanted to feel betrayed. But the truth was, she understood. In his position, she would have done the same thing. What do you need me to do? Keep digging. Find out where the money's going. I'll handle the rest. Over the next 2 weeks, Lena became a forensic accountant. She traced the payments through multiple shell companies, offshore accounts, and dummy invoices. The trail was sophisticated. Whoever set this up knew what they were doing. But they'd made mistakes. Small ones. A repeated IP address. A pattern in the timing of the transfers. An email thread that should have been deleted but wasn't. The trail led back to Daniel's chief operating officer, a man named Richard Stanton who'd been with the company for 5 years. He'd come highly recommended, with credentials from 2 Fortune 500 companies. On paper, he was perfect. In reality, he'd been systematically stealing from Daniel since day one. Lena compiled everything into a comprehensive report, complete with evidence that would hold up in court. Bank records, email trails, time-stamped logs. Everything an investigator would need to build a case. When she sent it to Daniel, his response was immediate. Meet me tomorrow, 2 p.m. I'll send you the address. Her heart pounded. After all these months, she was finally going to meet him in person. She spent 20 minutes picking out an outfit. Professional but not trying too hard. She arranged for Tyler's daycare to keep him an extra hour. She practiced what she might say, how she might act, then felt ridiculous for practicing. This was a business meeting. That's all. But her hands still shook as she applied mascara. The address led her to a sleek downtown office building. She checked in at reception, where a friendly woman with a tablet told her she was expected and directed her to the executive floor. An assistant met her at the elevator, a professional woman in her 30s with a warm smile. Miss Hayes, I'm Patricia. Mr. Cross is expecting you. Right this way. They walked down a quiet hallway with glass-walled offices on either side. Lena caught glimpses of people working, the soft hum of productivity. Everything felt calm, ordered, successful. Patricia stopped at a corner office with a stunning view of the city. She knocked once, then opened the door. Mr. Cross, Miss Hayes is here. Thank you, Patricia. Daniel stood from behind his desk, and Lena's breath caught. He was younger than she expected, maybe early 40s, with dark hair starting to gray at the temples. He wore jeans and a button-down shirt, sleeves rolled up to his elbows. No tie, no suit jacket. He looked tired, but his eyes were kind, the same kindness she'd heard in his voice on their calls. He was handsome in an understated way, the kind of handsome that came from intelligence and character rather than just genetics. Lena, he said, extending his hand. It's good to finally meet you. She shook it, feeling the strange surreality of the moment. This was the man who'd changed her life with a single text message. The man who'd given her hope when she had none. The man she'd spent 3 months working with but never seeing. You too. He gestured to a chair, and they both sat. His office was surprisingly modest. No flashy art, no expensive furniture. Just clean lines, a desk covered in papers, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. I read your report, he said, his expression serious. It's everything I needed. Richard's being arrested this afternoon. The board is already meeting to discuss next steps. Lena nodded slowly. I'm glad I could help. You did more than help. You potentially saved this company from collapsing. He leaned forward. Lena, I want to offer you something permanent. Head of financial oversight. You'd build your own team, set your own policies. Full autonomy. She blinked. That's a big job. You just took down a COO who'd been stealing from me for years. I'd say you've earned it. Lena looked at him carefully. Really looked at him. There was something in his eyes, gratitude, yes, but something else too. Something that made her pulse quicken. Why did you really help me that night? She asked quietly. The truth. Daniel was quiet for a moment. He looked out the window at the city below, and when he spoke, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. 5 years ago, my wife died. Cancer. Stage 4 by the time they caught it. We had no kids, no family left. It was just us, and then it was just me. He turned back to her. I threw myself into work because I didn't know what else to do. I built this company into something successful, but it never filled the hole. Every day felt like going through the motions. Wake up, work, sleep, repeat. He paused, and Lena saw the pain in his eyes. Then I got your text. This desperate message from a stranger who just needed help. And for the first time in years, I felt like I could actually do something that mattered. Like maybe all this money I'd made could mean something beyond numbers in an account. Lena felt tears prick her eyes. You gave me more than money. You gave me hope. You gave me a future. Daniel smiled, small, genuine, the first real smile she'd seen from him. You did that yourself. I just opened a door. You're the one who walked through it. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. So what do you say? Daniel asked. Will you take the job? Lena thought about Tyler, about the life she wanted to build for him, about the woman she'd been before desperation wore her down to nothing, and the woman she was becoming again. On one condition, she said. Daniel raised an eyebrow. What's that? I want to meet Tyler, and I want you to meet him properly, not as my boss, just as Daniel. Something shifted in his expression. Warmth flooded his eyes. I'd like that very much. 6 months later, Lena stood in front of the bathroom mirror in her house. A real house with a backyard where Tyler could play. She was getting ready for Vertex Analytics' annual gala, an event she would have laughed at the idea of attending a year ago. She wore a deep blue dress that hugged her figure, not because Daniel expected it, but because she wanted to feel beautiful. Because she'd forgotten what that felt like, and she was reclaiming it piece by piece. Tyler was with a babysitter, a certified nanny she could actually afford, who he loved and who treated him like he mattered. Her phone buzzed. "I'm outside." Lena grabbed her clutch and headed downstairs. When she opened the door, Daniel stood on her porch in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, holding a single white rose. "You look incredible," he said softly. "You clean up pretty well yourself." He'd been coming around more often over the past few months. Dinners with her and Tyler, weekend trips to the park, movie nights where Tyler fell asleep between them on the couch. It had started professionally, then became friendship, and somewhere along the way, it had become something more. Something neither of them had been brave enough to name until last month, when Daniel had kissed her in her kitchen after Tyler went to bed, and Lena had kissed him back like she was drowning and he was air. They'd been taking it slow, learning each other, building something real on the foundation of trust they'd already established. Daniel asked, offering his arm, "Ready?" The gala was held at a historic hotel downtown. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers and elegantly dressed people who belonged to a world Lena was still getting used to. Daniel kept her close throughout the evening, his hand resting lightly on the small of her back. He introduced her to investors, board members, and other executives, not as his employee, but as someone important to him. "Lena Hayes, our head of financial oversight," he'd say. "The woman who saved this company." And then, more quietly, when they were alone, "The woman who saved me." Later, when the formal program ended and people mingled with drinks, Daniel led her out to a quiet balcony overlooking the city. The night air was cool, and he slipped his jacket around her shoulders without her asking. "Can I tell you something?" she said. "Anything. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I'd typed the right number that night." Daniel pulled her closer. "I think about that too. And every time, I'm grateful you didn't." Lena looked up at him, at this man who'd seen her at her lowest and hadn't looked away. Who'd given her opportunity without condescension? Who'd let her prove herself on her own terms? "I love you," she said. The words came out simpler than she expected, but they were true. Daniel's eyes softened. "I love you too. I have for months. I was just waiting for the right moment to say it." "Is this the right moment?" "Every moment with you is the right moment." He kissed her then, soft and sure, and Lena felt something settle in her chest. Not just happiness, but peace. The kind of peace that comes from knowing you're exactly where you're supposed to be. A year later, Lena stood in Daniel's office, the same one where they'd first met in person. But this time, Tyler was with her, playing with building blocks on the floor while she and Daniel reviewed the quarterly financial reports. Tyler was 3 now, talking in full sentences and full of opinions about everything. He'd started calling Daniel Danny a few months ago, and Daniel had nearly cried the first time. "Look, Danny," Tyler announced proudly, "I made a castle." Daniel knelt down beside him, examining the haphazard stack of blocks. "That's an excellent castle. Does it have a moat?" "What's a moat?" "It's like a river around the castle to protect it." Tyler's eyes went wide. "Can we build one?" "Absolutely." Lena watched them, her chest full. Her life had completely transformed. She had a career she loved, financial security, a partner who respected and cherished her, and a son who was happy and healthy. It all started with a wrong number. Daniel stood and walked over to her, slipping his arm around her waist. He pressed a kiss to her temple. "You know what I was thinking?" he said quietly. "What's that?" "Maybe it's time to make this official." Lena's heart skipped. "What do you mean?" Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Her breath caught. "I mean, I want to marry you. I want to be Tyler's dad, officially. I want us to be a family in every way that matters." He opened the box, revealing a simple but beautiful ring. "What do you say?" Lena's vision blurred with tears. "Yes. God, yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her deeply while Tyler shouted, "You gross." In the background, they both laughed, and Daniel scooped Tyler up into his arms. "What do you think, buddy? Should your mom and I get married?" Tyler considered this seriously. "Will there be cake?" "Definitely cake." "Okay then." Lena shook her head, laughing through tears. "Is that really all it takes? With 3-year-olds?" "Pretty much." Daniel set Tyler down and pulled Lena close again. "I know this started strangely. A wrong number at midnight. But I don't think it was wrong at all. I think it was exactly right." Lena looked at the ring on her finger, then at Tyler building his castle, then at Daniel, this man who'd given her a second chance at life and love. You know what? She said. I think maybe the universe has better plans than we do. Maybe wrong numbers are just right numbers in disguise. Daniel kissed her forehead. I couldn't have said it better myself. 2 years later. The wedding was small and intimate, just close friends and family in a garden ceremony. Tyler served as ring bearer, taking his job very seriously as he walked down the aisle with a pillow. But the moment Lena remembered most wasn't the ceremony itself. It was later, at the reception, when Daniel gave a toast. 2 years ago, I got a text message that changed my life, he said, looking at Lena. It was meant for someone else. A desperate plea for help from a woman who'd run out of options. Most people would have ignored it. I almost did. He paused, but something made me respond. And that decision led me here, to this woman who's shown me what real strength looks like. Who took a hand up and turned it into a handout for others. Who built a department that's now setting standards across the industry. Who's an incredible mother and an even better partner. His voice wavered slightly. Lena, you didn't just accept help. You took it and multiplied it. You paid it forward to every employee you mentor, every process you improve, every person you refuse to give up on. You reminded me why I built this company in the first place, to make a difference. He raised his glass. To wrong numbers that lead to right places. To second chances. To the woman who taught me that helping others isn't about being a hero, it's about being human. I love you. Lena stood and kissed him while everyone cheered. When she pulled back, she whispered in his ear, "Best wrong number I ever sent." Tyler tugged on Daniel's sleeve. "Danny, is there cake now?" Everyone laughed, and Daniel ruffled his hair. "Yes, buddy. There's cake now." As they cut the cake together, Lena, Daniel, and Tyler, Lena thought about that night 2 years ago. Sitting on her kitchen floor in the dark, desperate and alone, typing a message to the wrong number. She thought about all the moments since. The struggle and the triumph. The fear and the hope. The slow building of a life she'd stopped believing was possible. And she thought about how sometimes, the wrong turn leads you exactly where you're meant to be. Sometimes the wrong number is exactly right. The end. Thank you for reading Lena and Daniel's story. If this touched your heart, please like and subscribe for more stories about unexpected connections, second chances, and the beautiful accidents that change our lives forever.